Time to learn our memory verse. It is Monday morning. Time to learn our memory verse. It is Monday morning. Time to learn our memory verse. It is Monday morning. Time to learn our memory verse.
Good morning, kids. Welcome to Memory Monday. Today we have a memory verse, a silly story, and a song. They are all about telling the truth. Before we get to our story, let's hear our memory verse. Today's memory verse is Psalm 120, verse 2. Deliver me, O Lord, from lying lips and a deceitful tongue. Can you kids say that with me? Psalm 120, verse 2. Deliver me, O Lord, from lying lips and a deceitful tongue. Great job! Now, let's get on to our story. Once upon a time, there was a little girl named Lily Lager Lollygagger. Lily was a sweet girl, but she was from a family who were always late for everything. But there was one big difference between Lily and her parents. When they ran into church 5 minutes late, Mom would be honest and tell her friends, Lucas was wearing a pair of socks that were so filthy they were stiff as a board and they smelled like a goat's armpit. So we had to stop and get him clean ones before we came. When they came to a family function late, Dad would admit to Granny, the football game I was watching went into overtime and I didn't want to miss the final play. But Lily was different. I could tell you in a sentence, but what would be the fun in that? Let me tell you the story of Lily Lager Lollygagger. One bright sunny afternoon, Lily was walking home from school. She had a piano lesson that afternoon, and she was supposed to hurry home. She started out doing just that. That was until she saw the cutest little turtle walking along the sidewalk. "Oh, hi, little guy," she exclaimed. "Aren't you cute?" The little turtle looked up into her eyes, and she imagined him saying, "Would you like to race with me, friendly girl? I've been working on my speed for an upcoming race with a hare. I think I'm doing well." Lily didn't want the poor turtle to be sad, so she agreed to race him. "Let's race to the end of the block," she told her new friend. The turtle nodded in agreement, or at least Lily told herself he did. "On your mark, get set, go," she called out. The turtle must not have worked on his speed very much, though, because he was moving slower than a sloth racing a snail. Lily didn't want to hurt Mr. Turtle's feelings, so she continued to race with him, but stayed a few steps behind him. But it was taking forever. By the time she got to the end of the block, an hour had passed and she still had 3 blocks to go. Lily sped as fast as her legs could carry her. Arriving at her house, she rushed through the door and shouted, "I'm home!" "You're late," Mom commented. "We should have left for your piano lesson by now." Lily tried to think of a good excuse, but a racing turtle didn't seem like a good enough reason. She wanted to tell a bigger, grander story, so she started speaking anything that came to mind. Her words came out faster than what she could think, and she hoped this was believable. "You see," she said, "I had a good reason. Mr. Wobbleton Wigglytoes, the 3rd grade teacher from down the hall, was snorkel snoozing in a hammock made of spaghetti down by the Flibber Flabber fields. He had this idea just before the 5th Thursday of the Upside Down month. Of course, he had to do it because the squirrels thought it would be fun to juggle acorns." Lily could see by the look on Mom's face that her story may not have been believable. So she gave a smart grin and said, "Or something like that. It's been a long time since I walked home. I could have remembered wrong." Mom sighed and they rushed to the van. "Let's go. We're going to be late, as always." How did Lily handle being late differently than her parents do? That's right, she told a lie. That reminds me of our memory verse today. Can you help me say it? Psalm 120, verse 2. Deliver me, O Lord, from lying lips and a deceitful tongue. Great job! Now, let's see how Lily does with her next situation. The next day was a beautiful day, full of sunshine. And it was Saturday. Lily was so excited. It had rained all week long, and now it was perfect weather to play with her friendly neighbor boy, Earl Early. Lily ate her breakfast as fast as she could. She even put her dishes in the dishwasher without being asked. "Mom," she called, "can I go play at Earl's house?" Mother smiled and nodded. "Thank you for cleaning up after yourself. I appreciate it. You may go play with Earl, but you need to be home by noon for lunch. Granny Gooseberry is coming over, and she's bringing us her special roasted chicken casserole." "Oh, yum! You know I won't be late for that. That's my favorite." Lily ran out the door, and her mother laughed and said, "We'll see about that." Lily didn't stop to argue with her mom because she was so delighted to go play with her friend. But hearing her mom's words made her more determined than ever to be home on time. Maybe even a little early, she said to herself as she skipped along. Lily had a marvelous play date with her pal Earl, but he had to leave at 10 o'clock because his family was going to a movie. "Perfect," Lily said to herself as she slipped into her jacket. "Now I'll be home super early and Mom will be more proud than ever." While she had good intentions, being on time wasn't going to happen for Lily this beautiful Saturday morning, because just as she was almost home, she saw her friend Nancy jumping in a giant mud puddle that had formed during a long week of rain. "Oh," Lily called out to her friend, "that looks like so much fun. Can I join you?" Nancy giggled. "Of course! The more the merrier." "Yay!" Lily laughed as she jumped into the mud puddle, glad that she had worn her rain shoes in case she ran into any mud. "But I can't stay long. I'm going to be home early for the first time in my life." "Oh, that's impressive," Nancy grinned. "I won't keep you long. I've got a question, though. You've heard of snow angels, but have you heard of mud angels?" As she spoke, Nancy dropped into the mud and started moving her body as though she were doing jumping jacks. Lily giggled. "That looks tremendously fun." She jumped into the mud next to her friend and started making the same motion with her friend. This was so much fun. Time must have passed quickly, because before she knew it, Lily heard her mom calling out to her in the distance. "Oh," she exclaimed, "I better go. I hope I'm not late." But she was. She was very late indeed. She sprinted into the dining room with mud dripping from her jacket and hair. Granny Gooseberry let out a shriek, and Mom frowned. "What on earth have you been doing?" Making mud angels was fun, but Lily didn't think it was a good enough excuse to be this late for such a special lunch. She tried her hardest to think of a convincing story, and a smile spread across her face as it developed in her mind. Yes, this story was much better than the truth. She opened her mouth, and as usual, the words began to tumble out of her mouth. "I was going to be home early, but then the craziest thing happened," she started. "I saw Senior Fibber Flabber Flabberjack wibble wobbling like a jellyfish on a trampoline. Usually, that wouldn't make much sense, but it was right by the Wibble Wobble Woods, so of course he was wibble wobbling rather than slimy slithering. Anyhow, I thought I had plenty of time to get home because this was just before the Sneezing Squirrel Festival began." Lily realized that didn't explain her being covered head to toe in mud, so she quickly added, "And I'm all muddy because after that, the frogs were having a singing contest and needed an audience in the mud puddle." Mother sighed, and Granny hid a giggle behind her napkin. Before they could speak, Lily said, "Lunch looks delicious, and I'm really sorry I'm running late. I'll go shower and change, then I'll join you." If you were Lily's mom, would you have believed her story? I don't think I would have. But Let's practice our memory verse and then we'll move on with our story. Psalm 120, verse 2. Deliver me, O Lord, from lying lips and a deceitful tongue. Great job! Now, while Lily was in the shower, she got distracted by the bubbles from her body wash. She pretended like the shower drain was a monster that was eating them. She tried to save them, but they either escaped down the drain or she popped them. She needed more bubbles. Grinning, she dumped half the bottle of body wash, and she laughed as it began to make millions and millions of bubbles. "I'll save you!" she shouted to the bubbles as she dropped on her bottom and began pushing them away from the imaginary drain monster. As you can imagine, this was quite the fun game, and the time passed quickly, far more quickly than she could have imagined. It lasted so long, in fact, that her tummy began to rumble, and she remembered that lunch was waiting for her. After she was dried off and dressed, she was confused to find lunch put away, and Mom was in the kitchen preparing supper. "Mom," she said, "it seems early for fixing supper when we haven't had lunch." Mom shook her head and said, "Lily, it's 4 in the afternoon. You were in the bathroom for quite a long time. Would you like me to warm up some leftovers from Grandma's lunch?" "Oh, yes, please," Lily said. Mom hadn't asked, but Lily didn't want Mom thinking she had not been interested in spending time with Granny, so she decided she needed to give a reason for her shower taking so long. "I showered so quickly, I was just finished getting dressed when something caught my eye outside the window." Once again, the words were tumbling out of Lily's mouth. "You wouldn't believe what I saw." Mom grinned and said, "Yeah, it seems like I might not." "Just wait till you hear," Lily exclaimed excitedly. Tootleberry Tinklepants, the old man who lives on the corner, was twirling while balancing a banana on his nose. I think he was headed to Tootleberry Town. This makes perfect sense because it was right after the last dandelion sang a lullaby. He, of course, felt bad for the dandelions because the flowers were tired of standing still and decided to join a parade. He didn't want the dandelions to feel left out, so he put the banana on his nose to show, well, you know, it all makes sense. See what I mean? What do you think? Do you think Lily's mom will believe this story? Let's take a minute to review our Bible verse for the day. Psalm 120, verse 2. Deliver me, O Lord, from lying lips and a deceitful tongue. That night, Lily was very tired and ready for bed. She was sure that after Dad tucked her in, she would fall asleep quickly. However, once Dad had prayed and tucked her in all cozy into bed, it was her imagination rather than happy dreams that took her attention. She imagined there was an army of cute little kittens in her closet. In her mind, they were planning the world's biggest pillow fight. She smiled at them and said, "You are so little and you only have tiny pillows, but I have this one that is bigger than all of you combined." The cutest little kitten, who she was sure was the leader, smiled and said, "Do you think so?" And then, suddenly, before her eyes, the fictional fluff ball grew so tall its head was hitting the ceiling. "What do you think now?" it taunted her. Lily jumped into a standing position on her bed, pillow in hand. "Let the battle begin," she declared. She swung her pillow wildly at her sweet little enemy. "I shall win the war," she shouted out. The pillow fight didn't last long because on the 5th swing, Lily's pillow caught on the edge of the dresser and ripped. Fluffy feathers floated all around her like snow. "It's a blizzard," she called out to the kitten. "Run and hide, you fearful fluff ball." Hearing the ruckus, Dad came into the room to check on Lily. "Oh my, what is all this?" he exclaimed. Lily didn't want to get in trouble for this large mess, and she wanted to point out the giant feline in the corner of her room, but Dad could never see her imaginary friends. And besides that, she decided she needed a better story. She sighed and once again let the words tumble out of her mouth. It's easy to explain. I was basically asleep, she started. Happy dreams were coming my way, but then it looked like they were coming to life right in my very room. You see, Snickerdoodle Snorfluff was bippity bouncing on a pogo stick while singing opera on his way to the Snickersnack swamp. He said he had to hurry along because at the stroke of midnight the chickens were going to dance the cha-cha. And, as one would, he really wanted to see that. So now, as you can imagine, that was quite the distraction from the slumber I was falling into. I sat up on my bed to watch, when all of a sudden the clouds got bored and decided to have a pillow fight. And now, look at this mess we have. Lily, Dad said, I think we need to have a talk about telling the truth. I always tell the truth, Lily said, and then frowned. Well, I guess maybe sometimes I tell a story or two. Dad nodded. Yes, I think sometimes that is the case. Maybe this is something you could work on and pray about. David wrote in the book of Psalms, Deliver me, O Lord, from lying lips and a deceitful tongue. Maybe this is a prayer you could pray and a verse you could think about. Lily smiled at Dad. I would like that. And when I forget, could you remind me, she asked. Dad nodded. I'd love to help you. That night, Lily fell into a deep sleep and awoke the next morning, determined to always tell the truth. She ate her breakfast and brushed her teeth, as she was happy to see that if her family was late to church, it was not going to be because of her. That was, of course, until she couldn't find her new favorite pair of red ballet shoes. They were the only shoes she liked to wear when she had a pretty red bow. She looked high and low for them, but couldn't find them anywhere. Time to leave, Mom called from downstairs. Just a minute, Lily called back. She looked under her bed and imagined a miniature man who came into kids' rooms at night and stole their shoes. Suddenly, rather than looking for her shoes, she was looking for the little shoe gremlin. She decided she would rather find him than her shoes, so she would not only get her shoes back, but the shoes of all the little ones around the world who were forced to go about in ugly old sneakers rather than their pretty Sunday shoes because of the old man. As she imagined his character, she began to get angry. How dare he do this to kids? She pretended like he was standing on her desk, laughing at her. Give me my shoes back, she demanded. He only giggled in response. Come on, she insisted. Church started 10 minutes ago, he said. But Lily realized it was not his voice, but the voice of her mother, and she snapped out of her daydream. She grabbed a pair of black sandals and ran down the stairs, calling ahead of her, Coming! As she reached the bottom of the stairs, she began to formulate what story she would tell her mother and father. Obviously, they wouldn't believe a story about a tiny little shoe thief. She thought she needed a better story. She thought, I'll tell them that Wally Wackadoodle flew past the window, flip-flap-flopping like a pancake in a windstorm. She imagined telling them that he blew all the way to Giggle Gaggle Grove during the great giggly gumball storm that blew through that morning. This obviously had to happen because the wind was feeling mischievous and decided to play hide and seek. It just took Wally with him. Lily was just about to let the words tumble out of her mouth, like they usually did, when she remembered the talk she and Dad had last night. She prayed in her mind, Deliver me, O Lord, from lying lips and a deceitful tongue. Lily smiled at her parents and said, Sorry, I couldn't find my red shoes, and I got lost in a daydream while I was looking for them. But I'm ready to go now. Dad smiled proudly at his daughter and said, Now that sounds like a true story. Let's get to church. It sounded like Lily really learned her lesson. Can you kids help me say the memory verse one more time before our song? Psalm 120, verse 2. Deliver me, O Lord, from lying lips and a deceitful tongue. Great job! Now let's hear a song based on this story.
singing frogs at festivals for moms along. Oh Lily, tell the truth, no more tales for you. Psalm 120 in verse 2. Deliver me, O Lord, from lying lips and deceitful tongue. With honesty today her new song will be sung. One night she dreamed of kittens, a pillow fight begun. Feathers flew, Dad walked in, saw the mess she's spun. He said, Lily, let's pray and work on telling truth. With Dad's help and Saul's wisdom, she found her proof. Sunday morning, off to church, couldn't find her shoes. Almost spun a tale again, but had nothing to lose. She prayed to God for guidance, spoke the truth instead. Her dad smiled proudly and the church they